everyone was doing it. I know situations where someone said, I can't come to your opening this evening, just put 2 aside for me, it doesn't matter which ones, I'm just going to buy them. They didn't care. And they put it away in the basement or whatever, never looked at it, right? That didn't work. And rightly so, that was a fiasco, because they didn't love it, they didn't care. So that maybe is a general response.
Fine. I have a question regarding you mentioned Kuosami, and he put quite a few thoughts on regionalism in his writing about art history. And do you think, or put another example here, there's the current art historian Patrick Rose, who also writes a lot about from the Philippines, about, let's say, a new confidence in regionalism, how art history has been told. What I wonder, what I'm trying to ask is, do you see, because it's very much a story of the global art market, but do you see that there is a new confidence with this new generation of collectors? Also, like how art history is been written, so not so much as a kind of, let's say, Western art history, or in relation to Western art history, very much more open as a kind of local art history or regional art history.
Yeah, that is very important, what you're saying. Again, I mean, knowing from the Indian side, I can tell you that the view was always a colonial view on India from outside, and that's fundamentally wrong. So that began to be thrown overboard in the late 40s. But today, there's still, sometimes I see it, still that sort of colonial thinking from the West. But I look at it from an Indian perspective. This is India's moment, this is Asia's moment. You must understand it from inside and argue from inside and look at the, as you say, your local position. I hated the terminology of people saying, oh, Indian art in the 40s is so derivative. But that was a completely misunderstood position, because every artist, anyway, will look at everything. That Picasso famously said, I have to look at everything, and then I have to be like a child again and recreate something that is my own. And that's what every artist does. So if you say it's derivative, it's not understood, I think. So anyway, I completely agree with you. We must look at it locally or regionally and how it is positioned within the world at that time. There's an important show right now in Bombay called India and the World, and it was about juxtaposing Indian works of art of a particular period with art from around the world of that same time, and how does it sort of match up, or how does it stand, how the same idea is happening. That is interesting, and it's going in this direction, and that was driven by Neil MacGregor, the former director of the British Museum, who is one of the great sort of thinkers and storytellers about works of art and how they stand on their own feet at a certain moment in time, in a certain space.
Hugo, could you comment on the journey that an artist, that certain artists have taken, local artists, Indian local artists have taken, to develop international collectivity? So you touched on the modernists really being influenced to a large extent by Westerners who were based in India. And then they grew to have Indian collection, NRI's collection, and locally or from non-resident Indians from outside collection that's based in India. How did they then go on to be collected internationally? For example, other collected locally. Was it something about the aesthetic? Was it the way you promoted it? Was it the packaging? All of the above. I know it all goes into it. Could you just comment on that?
Yes, about the journey of an artist, how to become internationally recognized at the end of the day. This is not a black and white answer. It goes back to, a gallery supporting an artist. For support, he looked himself proactively, I want to get the best possible international backing. And he got Hauser and Wirth to back it, who are very strong and were able to reach these top level clients, as we know. It has partly to do with that, but that's not the only thing. The other thing is, it reminds me of Picasso and Braque arguing with Kahnweiler in 1906. Brock found out that Picasso's getting 100 French francs for a canvas, and Brock is getting 50 for something that almost looked identical at the time. They were indistinguishable almost for that brief period in 1906. And then Brock goes to Hugo Weihe furiously. Why is he getting 100, I'm getting 50? It looks the same, you can't even tell the difference. Then Hugo Weihe said, because Picasso is the personality, right, of the artist, always plays a role. Actually, I find Subodh is one of them. He's a great person to speak, convincing as an artist. Same as Hussein, who I told you went out and said, I don't need you guys. He was actually an extraordinary person he would then ring people's bells, he would go to collectors around the world and say, I'm here, I want to just stay the night and I'll paint. Give me some space, and he painted and did the work half finished. And that was his way of saying, I'm going to come back and finish it, I'm just leaving it. So he built collectors around the world like that. But ultimately you need international backing, and then you need the validation of an institutional show. Guggenheim is a good example. Then you're there, then you've arrived.
Journalist and cultural critic.
Hi, I mean, I guess this question is sort of related to what Shalini was asking, but I was wondering whether you had any theories, as someone who's connected to money, who understands the connections between money and collecting, whether you had any theories of how to persuade a nation or a people to start collecting art. And the reason why I ask is because I live in Singapore, where the population is quite affluent, but I would say that art buying is extremely low. People are extremely pragmatic about how they spend their money. And I think, I suppose some of my friends in KL might be interested in the answer as well, because I think the collector base here is quite small, considering that there's quite a wealth of art that's being produced here. So do you know how to persuade, in your experience as an auctioneer, as a dealer, how people can be persuaded to buy art?
Yeah, we're still trying to crack this one. Yeah, it's first the real estate, and then the yacht and the fast cars, right? And then maybe art further down the road. Yes, but that's the only bit that will be memorable, right? No, I can give you just a few examples. The Chinese government realized, who are all these crazy foreigners coming to China buying this contemporary art? Why? What do they think about it? What is it? But you know what? It's obviously having an impact. People are coming and want to do it, so let's support it. It's great. So let's build the artists a whole bunch of studios and let them work at it. That's an enlightened way of looking at supporting it. And look at Singapore. It's fantastic what the government is doing in terms of the institutions and the presentation. That's an important step. So I mean, it's step by step. I think that will have a great impact. Yeah, it's very hard, I can tell you, to convince. Everyone talks about all these young collectors, all of that, and I'm sure some of you are here. But it's not that easy to get someone who's not growing up in a house. Don't forget, not many people have the privilege anymore of growing up in a house with art, surrounded by art and libraries and all of that. Less and less. We grow up with computer games, iPhones, looking at that. No sense of cultural education necessarily. I can see it in India. The school classes don't even necessarily go to the museum. People don't know their history. They don't know their art. That's amazing. So it takes even more education to overcome. So that's why, from an Indian art market point of view, it started in America. It was the NRIs, non-resident Indians in America, that had studied at the Ivy Leagues, very successful. They suddenly care about their culture and buy their art first, ahead of people back in India.
Hello, can you hear me? Right. So earlier you said that sometimes the younger generations will go to the galleries and simply go there because the things there are Instagrammable, right? So it's sort of conveying the fact that they're not taking the time to appreciate the arts, whether it's the classics or the contemporary. So within the years of your career, do you think this sort of trend will persist in the future, and what sort of impact will it give to the world of art collecting?
So I have a very strong bias. I think it's partly generational. but personal, quite a Luddite. And there's a quite influential German-American political philosopher called Albert Borgman, who's written about the importance of, as our lives become more and more digital, the importance of building into our everyday routines things that he calls focal practices. And so the very basic things actually, but just like very focused ways in which we as physical beings engage with the tangible world. And so he would include things like growing a plant, or playing a physical musical instrument, or long distance running. Quite basic things, but things which actually do have a very clear, clinically proven restorative effect on mental health. And in my view, even though when you come to an amazing gallery like this one, the museum that we're sitting in right now, even though you're not necessarily physically stroking the art, you aren't there in space with it, experiencing it as a three-dimensional object. I would hope, I mean, you're asking kind of the futurological, but I'm actually responding more as what I hope we can maintain, is art as a way, as focal practice, actually as a way of combating the increased digitalization of all of our lives. But, you know, I think every generation despairs of the rising cohort and how new technologies are going to ruin everything, and actually they end up doing wonderful things with them. You know, they're wonderful young artists working in the digital space that another generation of auctioneers will have to learn how to sell and explain. So I don't feel that I personally could look into a crystal ball and say how it will affect. I would imagine some people might get more comfortable just on the basic art market level, even though I agree with your expertise that one shouldn't just buy off a screen. I do think there will, in the same way that a lot more people are comfortable buying not just FMCG, but quite high value FMCG online, like high fashion online just from a screen. I could imagine that there'll be a new generation of collectors who might feel more comfortable informing themselves digitally before acquiring, even if that's not advised.
Yeah, if I may add to this too. The aspect of something tangible, something unique, is very important. It's a deeply human desire. So I see this as a cyclical happening. I'll give you a few examples. The Swiss watch industry was, they thought this is finished when the digital watches came. We're finished with mechanical watches, it's over. No, what happened? Suddenly today, mechanical watches are desirable because they're a little work of art in themselves. People appreciate it. It's human now, suddenly you can sell a watch for millions of dollars, right? Second thing, yeah, it's always about that unique aspect. So I think that will always come down. Sorry, the one example I want to give is when Kindle came up, everyone said, oh, books are finished now, right? Now we just read it on screen. No, you know what? People love to feel the paper. They love beautiful typography. They love something beautifully designed. It comes back. It coexists. That's a beautiful thing. We will always come back to these things. And art is the best example of this. It is about that uniqueness. That's what we desire as a human longing. So it will come back. So this is just an interesting and logical, actually, happening, what's happening with Instagram. It's interesting. Now it's all about, driven by quick flashing images rather than the long, study or long text or less than 144 characters. It's interesting to me, but we'll come back to what we really care about. It's just a human instinct.
But I would like to add to